I think that I consciously or unconsciously felt stuck, like I couldn't change these thought patterns and behaviors, that this is just the way it was going to be. And I don't think I at all appreciated how plastic, these things can be.
Transformational perspectives.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Transformational Perspectives. This is episode 2. In this episode, we are going to be delving into Andrew Barber's transformation. Andrew Barber is a professional poker player. He's been at the final table at the World Series of Poker, and he's having a little bit of trouble focusing on his PhD at the moment. So my guests today are Eliot Redelman and Tim. I met Eliot years and years ago at a meetup, and we were both just very clearly obsessed with self-improvement and working on ourselves. Kept in touch, and then years later I saw a video. I'll put a quick clip of it somewhere here.
So I reckon you wouldn't explode, but I can't prove it to you without encouraging you to bring up more anger and be with a bigger balloon of anger.
This insight's incredible. The fear that I've been creating, that's why people have been acting a certain way towards me.
The goal will be on the other side of a difficult emotion. So if you can't go through the difficult emotion to get there, you're just stuck here.
And it was of him running somebody through an IFS transformation. It was very clear to me just from the little bit I saw in that video clip that Eliot knew what he was talking about in terms of transformation. And he's familiar with many different modalities, so I wanted to have him on to get his opinion on this transformation. So Eliot and Tim, do you want to quickly introduce yourselves?
Sure. So I mainly focus on meditative methods, sort of awareness practices, internal family system. I have a whole grab bag of different therapy styles. And usually I'm sitting with my intuition saying, what's the fastest way from A to B in this conversation? I do a lot of playing with states, like noticing if things suddenly get heavy or tight and offering that people open it up, or, something dark might appear, like it feels like there's something dark behind you. What's that about? And maybe a person will be able to identify it and connect to it and open up that. And Tim was part of my direction into internal family systems. I run the Sydney Rationality group, and Tim's been part of it for like 5 years, I think. And we've been on sort of self-development journey together, particularly IFS stuff, internal family systems.
Tim? Yeah, so Tim Josling's my name. I've been obsessed with self-improvement as well. As far as IFS is concerned.
For 40 years.
Yeah, for quite a while. Not 40 years, 25 years. Starting with Tony Robbins of all people. And yeah, as far as IFS is concerned, I mainly applied it to myself, but also to some people around me. I don't really see myself as a therapist or a counsellor, but it's been a magic thing for myself. And I've also been able to help some other people around me deal with some things that were very annoying to me in particular. So that's been very good. I actually did Jay Early's advanced IFS course for a while, and that was absolutely terrific. I mean, Jay is very by the book, and so that was good. So he really followed a rigorous process, but he did have also that intuition as well. So that's my background on IFS. Yeah.
Great. So we are going to get started and play.
In my life and career development, as far as finishing my dissertation for my PhD.
Okay, and what's been going on with that?
I would say, a lot hasn't been going on. There's a lot of resistance to completing that I'm trying to unpack and understand. I've often thought that, maybe the biggest motivation to push grad students out the door and graduate is the fact that almost no one can live on a graduate student salary. And the problem I have is that I've been successful outside of academia, and I think that's made me somewhat complacent or content to just kind of enjoy what it is to be a PhD student, to occasionally teach, to explore topics, converse with other, academics and intellectuals, and just kind of think. And I think that works, except for the fact that, I'm not operating in a vacuum. I'm subject to constraints. I'm subject to, the whims of my department on whether or not they want to allow me to continue to be here. And that's not, you're not given infinite time to finish your PhD.
Yeah.
My partner, my fiance we've been together for 3 years, and, she has jokingly said that she would break up with me if I didn't finish my PhD. I think she knew I needed some kind of a nudge, and that was the best nudge she could provide. So yeah, so there's for various reasons, I do feel the need to complete it, but it's just gotten impossibly hard. And I've tried a variety of commitment devices to just get the ball rolling, and those have been, mostly unsuccessful.
Yeah. Yeah. And so oftentimes when we try these external things to maybe coerce ourselves into doing things, right? It can actually, if we have some resistance, it can make that resistance worse, right? We're sort of pushing against this resistance, and the resistance pushes back. So one way to think about this or look at this, and I don't think this is a complete frame, but it is a useful frame, is that the actions we're doing. So real quickly, a little bit of background on Andrew and I. We've been working together just doing weekly reviews for a long time, so I know a little bit of his personality. And so part of what I'm doing here is knowing how he communicates and how he thinks. I'm giving a very theoretical basis for the work we're about to do, and I'm trying to explain why it's going to work and how it's going to work. And that is not something that I do with everybody. I won't go into this depth of explanation with everybody, but for Andrew, that's going to make a lot of sense here.
It looks like he's like it feels like he's on the front edge of his seat. Like he's the surface, and there's a big thing behind him that he's not looking at and not talking to. And like yeah. I know you can't literally see it, but like it appears in my intuition that there's the thing that he's not looking at, and his PhD is sort of in there at the back. Sort of, I might just be heading towards past identity, heading towards, reasons why he keeps running away from it. But
it came up specifically what you're talking about, Cam, for me when he was talking about his ex jokingly saying, "We're gonna quit," and there was some nervous laughter there. There's something there under the surface that we want to look into.
Yeah,
we'll see. Are reasoned and logical within some subconscious framework that we might not be aware of, right?
Right.
And so one way to look at resistance is that the resistance is for something, for some reason. It's doing something for you. And so we want to look at that and integrate that into our wisdom. And then once we're sort of integrating that in, we can figure out how do we want to respond, right? Just to throw out a few totally random examples, and you probably feel resistance to all of these examples, but like it's just an example. So maybe the solution is that, well, it doesn't make sense for me to get a PhD anymore, so I'm going to stop trying to do this, right? Maybe the solution is, well, I'm going to do my PhD, but I was trying too hard, and I'm going to try less hard, and I just want to get it over with. Maybe it's the opposite, right? Maybe I wasn't trying hard enough, and it really matters to me that this is crafted and artistic and get something across. So the resistance could be trying to tell you all of these things. And so all we're going to do in order to do that is access this feeling of resistance and see what comes up and begin to dig into that. Make sense?
Sure, yeah.
Great. So I want you to, there's a few ways we can go about this. So perhaps maybe the way to strongest get into the resistance is to take a moment here and begin doing what you need to do to work on your PhD, right? So I don't know if you need to pull up some program on your computer or what you need to do right now to begin actually working on it. So we've now moved into the first sort of phase of my particular approach, which is experiencing whatever you're working with and bringing that up and making it strong and making it clear to the person what it is they're feeling. Do either of you have any thoughts up to this point, or just continue?
No, that's good. I mean, you're not being very explicit about the whole parts thing, but I suppose that's a matter of judgment as to what the person's up for and so forth.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in there's the part of him that'll be wanting to do the PhD and the part of him that'll be wanting to resist the PhD. And you've gone to go look at the resistance. I'm kind of interested because I got a hunch that the part of him that actually wants to do the PhD, if you asked him, do you want to do the PhD? He'd be like, yeah, kinda. Like he wouldn't be like, absolutely, I love my PhD, I'm super keen about it. He would be like, I guess I should probably finish it. And I would be like, I'd be working on that side. I don't know what will happen. Maybe we'll get there. I'd be working on strengthening that side, the desire to actually do it, and comparing it to the resistance that doesn't want to do it. Depending on,
and we will get exactly into that conflict. It's interesting. You would have started with the other side than I ended up starting with. Yeah.
It may also be that it may not be the right thing to finish it.
Yeah.
Like, of course, he may have both three, maybe bogus as to why he wants to do it.
It's always
he may discover he shouldn't do it.
Yeah. It's cautionary to pick the path for the client, because if I picked he should definitely finish it and I advocate for this half of him, I could be completely wrong. I'd be but the hunch in me is that part, the really wanting to finish it isn't very strong, and the resistance is sort of winning at the moment. And so I'd want to bring both sides up and then obviously let him choose at the end of the day, but get both of them loud and speaking to him so that he can decide.
Yeah. So the sort of the reason I went with this direction first, and again, there's different, every change we're going to have different intuitions, different way to go, is that typically I like to start with the side that a person is less blended with. So if someone comes to me and says, I want to do this, they sort of they're already blended with the part of themselves that wants it. And I always like to start with the part they're less blended with and get them to accept that and welcome that first, because there's a lot of growth opportunity there.
It's so funny because I think that he's more currently on the side of not wanting to do it. He keeps finding this, he keeps I think he's now, and he hasn't admitted it yet. And I would strengthen the
I could definitely see that way of thinking as well.
They're not doing it as winning, but he's more identified with it.
Cognitively, it's I'm the one who wants to finish it. This way,
So there's two different things here. There's which one is stronger in terms of your actions, and there's which one is stronger in terms of your identity. That's interesting.
To do is just notice your experience as you begin to start this, right? So you're halfway just focused on doing it and starting it, and halfway focused on your experience of it. And as you begin to do that, just keep going there, and let me know when this resistance begins to come up and get strong for you.
So a while ago, I put everything that I needed for my research, all of the files and data and literature review on an external hard drive. And I kind of associate it with, my dissertation. And I have to, plug it into my laptop every time I want to use the files. And my first feeling as I'm doing this is, I've taken several research hiatuses, and every time I get back to it, it's kind of like I'm starting over, that I have to reacquaint myself. It feels unfamiliar. I'm not sure where to start. I start to feel a little bit of pain, that it's going to be hard. It's going to be a struggle.
Okay. So let's focus on that pain. Are you feeling that right now? That sense of pain? Are you in touch with that?
I'm not feeling like deeply or viscerally, but I know that I'm starting to get to that point, because I literally just plugged in the hard drive and was opening it up. But I know that when I get a little bit further along in terms of opening the data and the software that I use, I'll be wondering, okay, all right, I need to get my code out. I need to figure out where I want to start. Do I need to debug something? Do I need to
get there?
My code?
Yeah. So notice that, right? You're starting to open files. You're like, I've got to do this. I've got to.
So I sort of interrupted him there simply because I could tell he was describing this to distance himself from feeling it. And I wanted to get him into the feeling section.
Yeah, it's really funny. When you first asked the question, I felt the tension, and I was looking at you, and I could tell things were intense. And then, when he started talking, it was like, he made this noise of like, ugh, here we go. And like, that's the pain of starting a thing. Like, he doesn't have the beginner's mind. Like, I start again fresh. He has this like, ugh, I have to like plunk my guts onto the table and then like pry through them, like that sensation. And I'm like, that's go straight there.
So you got in touch with, you could see he basically grimaced when he thought about connecting the hard disk.
Like,
But now he's got
he feels it and then he pushes it away. Then he feels it, he pushes it away. It's an interesting pattern we see here. He's distanced himself from this pain of starting, which is this is a common pattern with procrastination. You feel there's something painful about the task, and then you have an avoidance behavior on top of not even thinking about the task, so that you don't have to face that pain. I don't know where to start. What do I do now? And I want you to notice, right, other than what's salient for you here as you hone in on that sense of resistance, right? That sense of, oh my God, what do I do now? There's this, there's that. You might notice physical sensations coming up if you pay attention to your body. You might notice memories coming up. You might notice a voice in your head. What's salient for you as you sort of allow yourself, rather than fighting against resistance, you sort of welcome the resistance? What's salient for you?
It's not like a very descriptive feeling, but like overwhelm.
Overwhelm, right?
Yeah, maybe like I don't know, maybe like my palms are a little bit sweaty, like kind of clammy, kind of uncertainty as far as, I mean, that's again not like a very specific feeling.
Okay, so you're feeling this overwhelm, your palms are sweaty, feeling a sense of uncertainty. As you notice this overwhelm, and you pay attention to your body, if you were to place this overwhelm in a place in your body, right, where would you point to this sense of overwhelm in your body? So once again, he's sort of intellectualized this a little bit by calling it overwhelm, but he's not in touch with the experience. I'm trying to find some visceral experience here, and starting with the body to see if that will work.
Yeah, I'm sort of curious if there's like a story, like, when I was 8, I had this experience and I'm just about to do the overwhelming thing again or something.
Yeah.
There's no story, so you can only work with what he said.
I think maybe, it's funny, I had the same struggle with like this kind of stuff in CFAR stuff with like felt senses. Like I felt like I had a lot of difficulty locating sensations, but maybe I would say like kind of the pit of my stomach.
He's just told me that he's not very good at kinesthetic stuff, and I keep trying to go with it anyway, but we'll see what happens with that. Okay. So as you feel this overwhelm and uncertainty in the pit of your stomach, what I want you to do is just breathe into it. And what I mean by breathing into it, okay, is that you can breathe into more sort of your mouth. You can breathe into your throat. You breathe into your chest. You breathe into your stomach. And I want you to breathe and try and sort of pinpoint your breath to where that sense of uncertainty and overwhelm is. And imagine that you're sort of filling up that sense of uncertainty and then letting it go, and filling it up and letting it go. And allow yourself just a minute or two here to breathe into it. And really, like I said, just welcome it. Don't try to push it away. Don't try and get away from it. Just breathe into it and welcome it. And without coming out of that, I want you to stay there where you are in terms of your focus and awareness. Just resting your attention and awareness on that sensation. And while you're there, I want to check in with you because I know you have trouble accessing this. Does it feel like you are noticing something about how you're feeling? Does it feel like you are in touch with something? Or does it more feel like you're just humoring me and there's not really anything going on here?
I'm calming myself. I think like I definitely appreciate like the value of just taking a moment to breathe deeply, and like how that is kind of calming and settling.
Yeah. So my question is, do you feel like you are getting in touch with the sense of overwhelm, that you are getting more
aware of it or no? And either answer is fine.
No, I think if anything, maybe it's like fading slightly.
Got it. Okay. So from this place, once again, imagining that you're going back, you're now opening the files, you're feeling that sense of where do I start? How do I start? Oh my God, I've got to restart. Once again, getting in touch with that sense of overwhelm. Another way we can access this, if accessing through the body is harder for you, is to get in touch with that little voice in your head that is saying these things. Oh my God, where do I start? How do I start? Do you have a voice in your head that is saying these things to you?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's lots of internal dialogue regarding this subject.
Okay. So getting in touch now with that internal dialogue, really opening your ears, and again, instead of sort of pushing this voice away, allowing it, welcoming it, listening to it, like you might listen to a very wise person or somebody you really care about what they have to say. And as you're listening to it, I almost want you to allow you to turn the volume up on it. It's like you would turn the volume up on the radio. So that voice is getting louder, drowning out maybe some other voices in your head, maybe something that says, oh, but no, we've got to work anyway. And just listening to that voice of overwhelm and uncertainty. Do you hear it saying things to you now?
I think that I'm having to recall like things that I've said in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a really good job of like putting a big distance between me and this project over the last months. So I would be kind of playing recordings now.
Okay.
But so it's like a lot of negative self-talk. It's this project will never get finished. It's not any good. You're so poorly organized.
Just hearing him, the way he's sort of listing these out like you would list out a grocery list, you can tell he's still distancing himself from this voice.
Like these are things that hurt. These are like this project.
Yeah.
Good. They're like heavy, painful.
Mm-hmm.
I do like I like the wise person voice angle that you've got. Often go for like the compassion sort of angle, but I do like the wise person. It seems like the breath thing you did took him in the opposite direction to where you wanted him.
Yeah.
Is a way of making the feeling go away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was like in the way that he breathed out that he let it go, rather than the way that he breathed in, he like increased it so he could work with it. He was actually letting it go. Sneaky. I would have like watched his breath and tried to like coach him on like, no, hold on to it more. Don't push it away.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, you can use it as a relaxation thing. Yeah, it's interesting.
Like in IFS terms, it's almost like the part of him that wants to not do the project. Use that opportunity to distance, to make it go away. So playing into his hands.
I'm also interested in his. You said body and then voice. I'm interested in his visual. Like, does he have a visual? And I assume we'll get to that soon.
So as that comes up, right? What I want you to do is allow yourself to say those out loud as the voice is talking.
So now I'm trying to get him to actually connect with it more. So I'm trying to get him to resonate with what he's saying instead of distancing himself.
Say those out loud, hear yourself say it, and let it feed back in to this voice, right? I want you to almost allow yourself to work yourself up into a frenzy and allow this voice to take over. Now, if that gets too much, you can always back off and we can always get out of that. But I want you to allow yourself, take these recordings, say them out loud, feel the impact, and let that feed back into this voice and what it's saying to you. If you're comfortable doing so. If you're not comfortable saying it out loud, you can do the same thing, but in your head.
No, I don't mind. No one cares about this.
Proposal from proposal from like bioemotive framework that when it comes out your mouth and in your ears, one part of you can say it and another part of you can hear it, which would have otherwise been separate parts. And so if you say something like from bioemotive is like, I feel all alone, some parts of me may believe that, other parts of me might not. And like the part of me that needed the validation to agree with it gets to hear that. And that, like, you know, repeating it a few times, I feel all alone. I feel like I've always been all alone. I'll never have friends. Suddenly, like, you know, I can be a bubbling mess on the floor because I've connected to the part of me that really needed the validation in that thing. So,
Yes.
so it's a really good technique to hear it.
Yeah, this is very, very biomotive inspired. Definitely what we're trying to do here.
Topic, you know, it's too niche.
So you're saying no one cares about this topic. You're not really meaning it as you say it, right? What would it be like to really mean that? No one cares about this topic, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
This project is stupid. This is a stupid project.
Nice.
I chose poorly. You know, it was doomed to failure from the start. It's not going anywhere. It's a colossal waste of time to sink more time into it.
Hear that. Feel that impact. Keep going.
Yeah, what's the point of working on it? If it's not going to go anywhere, you know, it's not going to be of any use to anyone. You're going to do terribly on the job market with this research.
Hook your voice box directly up to that voice and just let things flow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to finish this because I don't finish anything. I let things, you know, I don't complete things all the time.
I feel like he already agrees with this. Like, this is like the core of him is on the side of like, absolutely, I'm not going to finish this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's been distancing himself from that core belief, right?
Right, and so he's not getting anything done because he knew, but he didn't really accept that he knew.
Yeah.
Well, presumably you're going to check whether it's really a rationalization.
Sorry, say again, Tim.
Presumably you're going to really check now whether it's a rationalization or whether this is actually true.
Right.
I mean, work that out.
He can still want to work on the project, but right now I feel like the majority of him is against, like, thinks he's never gonna make it on the job market, and he's been I'm always saying you'll never make it on the job market, and he's denying it. But the majority of him does kind of believe that. So in order to actually get to doing the project, he's gonna have to ramp up the other side and be like, no, I do believe in this project. Like, put more energy back into I do believe in it. Eventually, I think. I don't know. We'll find out.
Depending on, you know, if it's true.
Yeah, if it's true, maybe it's true and he shouldn't do the PhD at all. Like right now.
Yeah. I mean, potentially there's some truth to both of these sides of things. And like, oh, I really need to change the way I'm doing my PhD that will allow me to be more viable in the job market, right? That could be like a synthesis.
Be preparing for the job market.
All right, I'm gonna rewind a little bit. There we go.
I let things, you know, I don't complete things all the time. Why would this be any different?
Wow. All right. So from this place now, I imagine that this voice is now starting to sort of speak up instead of feeling like you're trying to recall. Does that feel true?
Yeah.
Great. So as this voice talks to you, I just want you to send it a question, and just like you were doing, let it answer, right? So we've now gotten to the point where he's experiencing it, and he's, in some sense, he's blended a little bit now with this part that he was distancing himself from.
But
from this point, go ahead.
He's in touch, which is what you need. What you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so in my process, the next step is usually acceptance here, of accepting both the negatives and positives, the part from the inside accepting itself, and accepting from the outside what other parts think of it, and sort of forgiving it. So that's what we're going to be going into now.
I'd probably do a like, thank the part for bringing up this information to you. Sort of simply.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. I'm glad I got that message.
Because typically the parts generally have the view that they're on their own, they're fighting this soul battle for goodness and rightness, and that they're up against the world, and you know they really need that kind of acceptance before they'll start.
Think of an answer. Just see what the voice says, right? You can wait until the voice says something, like you were before. You're just sort of
So I know that he's prone to intellectualize, so I'm trying to get him to speak with the part directly here rather than trying to think of an answer, waiting, and then, oh, here's another thing. And the question is, to the voice, what do you want for Andrew? What does the voice want for Andrew?
I think that I want him to have as little pain as possible. Okay, so
like a good protector.
This voice wants something that sounds fairly positive, wanting you to have as little pain as possible, right? Now, you might not agree with all of the actions this voice has recommended and the way that this voice talks to you. And it still has a positive intention, right? You can imagine a child or a friend who maybe you didn't agree with their actions, but you know they really cared about you. You can have gratitude for that. And I wonder if you could talk to this voice for a second and just say, like you would talk to a friend or a child that maybe you know that they care about you and you want to express gratitude for the fact that they care. And take a moment to just say what you would say to gratitude for wanting you to avoid pain.
I appreciate that you don't want me to feel pain.
Take me a moment there.
Whoops.
Once again, connecting with this voice, making sure that the voice is still there, still okay, welcoming it. And we're going to ask another question, which is, why is it important to have as little pain as possible?
So I said my next step was acceptance, but I was forgetting the introspection step, which we're doing here, which is getting to the deeper cut that this belief wants. Before we get into full acceptance, we really want to know what this belief really wants for him.
What do you want through that? Or what do you want to gain through helping Andrew avoid pain? Again, not feeling the need to try to answer, just waiting and waiting until the voice responds.
Yeah, I
This is
noticed.
not coming as quickly.
I notice I will probably, when I'm doing IFS stuff, I'll probably make parts more coherent. So particularly going the 4 channels, the body, the voice, the emotion, and the visual, like getting a full picture of the part. Some people like to give them names, but like really get a full picture of a part before trying to work with it, just in case if it's going to stick around a while, you can interact with it a lot more. And you've just gone for the inkling of the part, and then let's go work with the inkling sort of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. So the way I typically approach this is I don't want to force them to present the part in a particular way. Just whatever is presenting for them, I go with. And then when I have some sort of transformation or reconsolidation, then I try to bring in all of the senses to really make that solid now that there's transformation. So yeah, I think the thing you're talking about is also a really powerful thing to do, which is to start making it really solid and clear, then do the transformation, and then make the new part or the new way of being really solid and clear.
So I had when I was doing some work on myself, I wasn't caring about most of the channels, and one day I looked down like the emotion channel, and there was just a piece of information just sitting there that answered and solved the entire part, but I wasn't paying attention to how that part of me was feeling, and like because it unlocked so easily because it was right there. I'm like persistent with let's just check all the channels just in case there's something really easy there. Like it looks like this. Oh, that reminds me of my grandma. Suddenly, like bang, it all unlocks. So I'm like persistent about like just check every channel. And like depends on the person. Don't need it. Some people I feel like they've got the whole picture even if they've only got one channel. But I'd be more willing to like check all the channels.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing.
It makes me wonder.
Did you have anything, Tim, you wanted to add here, or you're good to go? Okay.
Maybe wrong on the first attempt. Like I wonder if instead of pain, or maybe it wasn't specific, but and I'm trying to feel it out. I'm not sure if it was to avoid pain or to avoid disappointment.
Yeah.
I mean, I think pain is like the short-term feeling, but maybe disappointment is like the longer term.
Yeah. So wanting Andrew to avoid pain, and that's important because that pain in the long term will lead to disappointment. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Once again, just noticing that this part of you, this overwhelm, this uncertainty, wants something positive for you. It wants you to avoid disappointment. And again, feeling gratitude, thankfulness for this positive intention.
I want to know what happened there. He looked at his disappointment and he was thinking about it or something.
Yeah, it was just taking a moment to give that gratitude, give that thankfulness.
Why is it important for Andrew not to be disappointed?
I mean, I want him to be happy.
Connecting with that. Part just wants you to be happy. And imagine you had that happiness for Andrew as deeply and completely and fully as you wanted or needed now and into the future. Andrew had that happiness fully, deeply, completely. And asking, is there anything deeper, more important, more fundamental that you want for Andrew through having that, now having that? Is there anything deeper you want for Andrew?
I see you dropped into core transformation suddenly.
Yeah. Sometimes when I get to these deeper cuts, I will do a core transformation move here just to double check and see if there's any higher states we can reach.
It's a good idea. I think I'm gonna steal that one.
I think that's the
Let's go
ultimate
deep.
goal. I think that
I gotta figure out where we were. Just pressed the wrong button.
it's not any good. You're so poorly organized.
Yeah. Take me a moment there. Once again, connecting with this voice, making sure that the voice is still there, possible. What do you want through that? Or what do you want to gain through helping Andrew avoid pain?
This one's not coming as quickly. It was the short-term feeling, but maybe disappointment is like the longer term.
That pain in the long term will lead to disappointment. It sounds like that this part of you, this overwhelm, this uncertainty, wants something positive for you. It wants you to avoid disappointment. Connecting with that deeply and fully as you wanted. Or
All right, here we are. So Eliot was saying this is the core transformation move. Rather than asking why is that important, you can ask, if you had that fully, is there anything more that you would want? And like I was saying, that's just sort of a check to see, okay, is there something deeper? Is there deeper layers to this part that it wants?
Needed now and into the future. Andrew had that happiness fully, deeply, completely. And asking, is there anything deeper, more important, more fundamental that you want for Andrew through having that, now having that? Is there anything deeper you want for Andrew?
I mean, I think that's the ultimate goal. I think everything is upstream of that,
Okay.
downstream of that.
Yeah. Great. Just check.
Okay, so now we have gone through the full introspection. We've gotten to the deeper cut, happiness here. And now we're going to move into the acceptance phase.
I do something
How are
interesting
you?
here. I'm often probably overly vigilant of anytime anyone uses the phrase "I think," which he just did there. Which I don't know if he was really in it. If he just thinks it,
Yeah.
I check, especially when I ask, "How do you feel?" questions. People often answer with, "I think blah blah blah," and I as a good practitioner can sense into how you're feeling, but I don't think you might have connected to how that feels when you use the phrase. And so depending on where I'm at, I'll call people out on it or get them to double check the I think statements and make sure we get to the I feel with it.
Yeah, and again, that's just going with the same pattern we've noticed of trying to distance himself from what he's feeling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to keep him honest. He did mention about avoiding disappointment, which I thought he was sort of suggesting that was in some way a kind of more fundamental or more important thing, that there was something there. That
Not just be happy, but
I thought it was disappointment, or that maybe that he was hinting towards shame or fame or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I think I definitely could have. That's a good point. I definitely could have, when he said disappointment, be like, what would that mean if you were disappointed? That would have been another way to go from there.
Also, I guess disappointment's a bit of a relational one. Like, who would be disappointed in you starts to branch into the shame type. Like, I would be disappointed in myself, or, oh, it feels like my parents would be disappointed in me. Suddenly I can open those memories of where that disappointment is coming from.
Because a lot of those levers that drive you to do things you don't want to do are around those sort of social pressures that you don't want to, be seen to a fire.
There may be
I mean, all three of these answers are very abstract. We had pain, and then we had disappointment, and then we had happiness. And all three of those we could do in pain of what is painful, disappointment according to whom, disappointment of what, happiness about what, happiness according to whom, that sort of thing.
You, in terms of feeling connected to this voice, do you feel like you have a sense of it? Do you feel like you have a grasp on it?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think that I bury it. I think I just bury this stuff, these feelings, this voice.
Yeah, and in this moment, you feel it's surfaced. You have access to it now. Great.
Very much so.
Great. So this part of you, and part is it's just a frame on this, right? It's just a way to think about these different feelings that are different parts of us. It has this sense of overwhelm and uncertainty for you. And that overwhelm and uncertainty wants you to have as little pain as possible. And through avoiding that pain, you can avoid that longer-term sense of disappointment. And that can allow Andrew to be happy. Now, sometimes this part, I'm sure, has helped you and done really powerful, positive things that you really appreciate. Maybe other times you feel resentment for how you've interacted with that part or how that part has interacted with you. So I want to take some time to acknowledge all parts of this part of you and your relationship with it. And so we're going to go through a Hawaiian practice called Ho'oponopono, which allows us to heal relationships with others, or in this case, with ourselves. So the first part of Ho'oponopono is thankfulness and gratitude. What are the things that you appreciate about this person or part of yourself? And can you express those now, either in your head, if that feels better, or out loud, if that feels better to you?
I've never heard of this. This is new to me.
I mean, I appreciate that I'm protecting myself.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't, no one else would. So that's, I mean, I can understand that.
Great. So now, the next step here is expressing love to this part. And I like to split, whenever I'm expressing love, I like to acknowledge that that I have both conditional love to give, meaning I can see the great parts of someone and love that. And I have unconditional love to give, meaning everyone and everything deserves love, despite who they are and what they are. I like to express both of those parts of love when I'm expressing love to someone or something. So if you can express love to this part of you, both conditionally and unconditionally, feel free to do that now. Now, if you don't feel comfortable with one of those two types of love, either the conditional or the unconditional, express love in whatever way feels congruent to you. And next step of Ho'oponopono is around forgiveness. We have gratitude sometimes for things that we agree with, things that feel wise to us. We might have resentment as well for other people or other things. Times that we feel someone made a bad decision or didn't talk to us in a skillful way or hurt our feelings. And forgiveness is about acknowledging that there were negative effects and not feeling the need to grasp and hold on and saying, it's okay, we can move on from here. We don't need to carry this grudge into the future. So if you can take a moment to forgive this voice, this part of you, for any things that you may feel resentment around. And the final part of this, Ho'opono.
What's up?
I don't think that's gonna work. This is a prediction of I don't know what's about to happen, but I think that's not gonna work because he's just got the voice to talk. He's on the voice's side, but he's not in a place of getting everything else in the room that can forgive him. Like other parts of him are still trying to do his PhD and don't like this voice. Like, I don't think this is going to do anything or do what you want necessarily.
Yeah, I think perhaps you've launched into a process here that's not really organic to what's happening. I mean, he mentioned, if I don't protect me, no one else will. To me, that was a thing worth really to be followed up.
Yeah, sure.
That was a huge, like, what's he talking about there?
Yeah, I got this image of like the small kid standing on the edge of the cliff, like he's like, I have to help me, the small me standing on the edge of the cliff because he's in danger, sort of. Like,
yeah.
Anyway,
So
we will see. Yeah.
Yeah, going deeper into that would have been an interesting way to go here. Yeah.
It's interesting that the process though is quite robust. That you can repeatedly miss things and still get there. I've found.
Yeah.
It's all,
absolutely.
Hindsight, looking through the replay, we get to be like, I know, like everything that could have happened.
But I picked it up later, sort of. Yeah. Okay. See.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think you're right. So a lot of times with the forgiveness thing here, a lot of times what we'll do, and I think I might even do this later, is, okay, invite the parts of yourself that have something to say and have grudges. I didn't do that in this particular instance, but we'll see. I forget exactly how he responds here and exactly what happens here. It's sort of the flip side of forgiveness. Sometimes we are the ones who are unskillful in interacting with parts of ourselves or with somebody else. We are the ones who hurt their feelings or ignored their needs. And I'm sure there are times of you when you've ignored this need of yourself, you've ignored this voice. You maybe haven't treated it, even if you didn't agree with it. Maybe there was a nicer way you could have talked to it or agreed with it or connected with it. So now apologizing and feeling sorry and letting that known to this voice. Checking in now with the voice. Have you noticed any shifts in how you're relating to this voice in your head? Have you noticed any changes, small or large, or not at all? If that's the case.
Yeah, I think big changes in compassion for this self-protective side of myself.
Yeah.
It meant well. I misunderstood it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So just taking a second to integrate that, right? Letting it talk to you like it normally would, but noticing if there's a different quality to that, or if you're relating to those words differently now. And just sit with that for as long as you'd like to feel like, okay, I've integrated this new sense, this new relationship. And let me know when you're done.
Yeah, I'm skeptical. I saw the way he looked up.
I mean, I anticipated some
NLP.
process.
I don't love NLP, but sometimes it has interesting points. So it was like he was recalling his relationship. Like when he said the word compassion, he looked up. It was like he was like thinking of it as not living it, but sort of thinking of it. I'm like, was that compassion really like solidly here, or was he like putting that on to tell you, the lovely therapist, that he was doing great at his therapy session right here? I don't know. It didn't feel
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that in this. Again, it's clear that he's used to distancing himself from his emotions in this way. He's used to intellectualizing this.
I feel like
it's hard. It's hard to tell. Yeah, it's really hard to tell. Okay, is this just his normal way of accessing and interacting with his emotions, or is this him? And I think there's probably some of both going on here. I think you're probably right that there is a little bit of, yeah, it's better. I have a better relationship now, sort of thing going on. But also just that's how he sort of is relating to his emotions in general. Yeah.
There's a level of appreciation there that wasn't there before.
Great. So we're going to set this aside for a moment, not because there's anything wrong with this voice, but simply because we want to work with another part of you. So you can almost imagine setting this voice off to the side, putting it aside with the promise and the meant promise that you will welcome it back later and connect back with it later at appropriate and wise time. And I want you to think back now.
So a little thing there that people might not pick up on is that sort of when you set something aside, the move of like promising you'll get back to it, noticing that you'll welcome it back is really there's like a whole bunch of resistance that could come up when setting something aside that just can all be ignored if you make the right moves when setting something aside.
Have you had that in a previous session that you had to like promise to come back or something?
Yeah, and I do it a lot. I work with it a lot in the procrastination playbook with when you're getting distracted by something, and simply by saying, "Hey, I promise I'll come back later," just it solves so much distraction issues.
Yeah, often I will tell people like at the end of the session, feel free to check in with this part tomorrow, the next day, next week, every couple of days, that sort of thing, just to make sure that now that it's happy, it stays happy.
Yeah. Now.
Oh, that's funny because like Jay really emphasised that you really have to keep these commitments. Oh, if you say I'll come back to you, and in fact he's much more diffident about, you're like asking the part, would he mind sitting on the couch for a while we talk to the other parts, and then just how did that go, and really making sure. But you're almost pushing it aside, and you haven't really had problems with that, doing that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think there's freedom. Sometimes you can just put them on pause. Other times, well, if they say no, I guess if the part was like, I don't want to go into the side, then you'd have to like work with it.
Okay. Yep.
I mean,
I think
it's not third, I suppose. So in that sense, you're in a good place with it.
Yeah. I suppose if you were like a firefighter part, or like parts really in tension with each other, it may be hard for one of them to step aside, but these don't really feel polarized that badly. They're sort of resisting each other, but not like drowning each other and trying to murder each other.
Okay.
To trying to work on your PhD, trying to write it, trying to work on it. And there may be another voice or feeling or sense that is pushing you to act, that is pushing you to take action, that is pushing you to work. And take a moment to get in touch with that, to connect with that, in whatever way makes sense to you. Now, if you need to, you can do the exercise we did earlier, where you can voice out loud the thoughts, you can hear them, you can get into that loop until this voice is really loud and consistent in you.
Yeah, I think this one comes a little more easily.
Great. And what does that voice want for Andrew? Is it a voice or is it a feeling? How are you connecting with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a voice again. It's like it's thinking back to the things that I have said to myself, or the reasoning I've used with myself before. You know, it's like the pros in a pros cons list.
Yeah. Yeah. So right now it sounds like you're still sort of trying to remember it. So again, welcoming that voice, opening it. If you feel comfortable, perhaps voicing some of these memories, these pros out loud and really meaning them. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I really want to complete this PhD. It opens a lot of doors.
You're still sounding like you're listing things like you were last time, rather than really connecting with those reasons and meaning what you're saying.
Okay. I want to move on to other things.
Yeah.
I want to do some good in the world. I want freedom.
Okay. I want to move on to other things. I want to do some good in the world. I want freedom. Yeah. Connecting with that, feeling that. There's part of you here that wants you to avoid disappointment so that you can be happy. There's part of you here that wants you to do some good in the world, move on, wants freedom. And right now we're connected to this part of you that wants freedom. And what's important about that freedom? Why does it matter that Andrew get that freedom? Again, just sort of holding this and waiting for an answer from the voice rather than trying to think about an answer.
Choices, opportunities.
Yeah. And being able to have those choices and seize those opportunities, why is that important? Why does that matter?
Greater happiness.
So you have this one part of you that wants more.
So this part is actually very jumped straight to deeper values, freedom, happiness, opportunity. And so sometimes I want to go up the stack, but sometimes I actually want to go down the stack and be like, okay, but how are you doing that? What is the strategy here? I mean, this is one of those times where he sort of skipped over a lot of stuff, and that often that's an indication that maybe that's something he doesn't want to look at. He wants to know that this part is good, but he doesn't want to see how it's achieving its ends or what it's doing.
Happiness, and this other part of you that wants more happiness. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Again, hearing this voice, connecting with this voice. I'm going to go through that same Ho'oponopono process. And you can take as long or as short as you need to complete this. If some of these already feel rather integrated, that's okay. You can take less for that step. If some of these feel less integrated, that's okay. You can take longer. So, first of all, feeling thankfulness and gratitude for this part that wants you to do some good in the world, wants freedom. Through that freedom, having choice and opportunities that can lead to greater happiness. And expressing that thankfulness and gratitude for this part of you, for this piece of you. Feeling love, perhaps of both the conditional and unconditional kind, and expressing that to this part of you. Now, noticing times that you may feel a little bit resentment, or some parts that you may feel a little bit resentment or frustrated. And if you want, you can bring in some of the objections from that other part we set aside. If that part has any resentments, you can bring that into this process and give forgiveness. And finally, noticing times when you may not have been kind or wise with this part, times you've ignored it or not talked to it nicely or not interacted with it in the wisest way, and apologizing. And from this place, just listening to this voice, connecting to it, and noticing if you feel any different or not. Noticing if you're relating to it differently and allowing that to integrate if, in fact, there is a difference.
I think I was better connected to this voice than the other, because I think this I understood, maybe not completely, but more so.
Yeah. So if I'm understanding correctly, maybe there wasn't as much of a shift here because you were already feeling fairly connected.
Yeah, I think that it was maybe easier to understand, the voice that's pushing for progress.
Yeah. Okay. So what I want to do is we're just going to do some exploration now of this part of you and the coherent reasons it has. And we're going to do this with a sense of irreverent curiosity. What do I mean by irreverent curiosity? I mean, we're genuinely wanting to explore this belief and curious about which parts of it are true and false and which parts of it are incomplete and complete. And we're not taking that process too seriously. We're having fun with it. We're enjoying it. We're like, yeah, really? I don't know. That's fun, right? So as you're here with this voice and you're talking to it, one thing I'd be curious about is how does it want to motivate you? So again, I'm jumping. Okay, he kind of skipped over this whole strategy for how this part is trying to get him to do these things. And I'm expecting here from my work with the procrastination playbook to hear something about shaming himself, guilting himself, which we sort of do eventually get to, but we not in the way that I expect, which is why we check here and I don't just assume, right? as a change worker, we can always have our own assumptions, but you got to listen to what's in front of you. What do you think is the proper way to get you to do the things, to do some good in the world, to get that freedom, to get choice and opportunities to lead to greater happiness? What does it think is the proper way to move you along and get that to happen? And again, not thinking, just holding that, like, how do you motivate Andrew? And seeing what comes up.
So I've got some stuff.
Okay.
Should we just voice it, or?
Yeah.
So I think that I worry sometimes that I'm not intrinsically motivated, that I need extrinsic motivation. And I think that there's like shame there because growing up, I never had to look for external motivators. And now it just seems like my life is, a bunch of like trying to create external motivation systems.
And when you say there's shame there, what does it mean about you? So when you get to shame, I typically am trying to find some sort of generalization. Typically, I'm not good enough. I'm a bad person. There's usually some sort of generalization belief under there. I don't know if you guys have found that, but that's what I'm trying to do here is figure out what the generalization is underneath the shame.
I would say if someone doesn't have the internal intrinsic motivation, there's something going on, like maybe a story like I'm not allowed to be too important for whatever reason. Therefore, he has to keep running and setting up external motivation because for whatever reason he learned he can't have it inside.
Yeah. I find a bit of ambiguous as to what he's actually talking about when he says,
growing up, I never had to look for external motivation. I'm not sure.
Can you take it back 30 seconds?
Because growing up, I never had to look for external motivators.
Hmm.
And now it just seems like my life is a bunch of like trying to create external motivation systems.
Hmm.
Right. So he's
So
talking
my
about
understand, yeah.
when he was
Okay.
little, he could just do whatever he liked. You want to play basketball, you play basketball. You want to draw a picture, you draw a picture. You don't have to stop and like, oh, do I want to draw a picture? I don't know if I want to draw a picture. And now he's like, what do I really? He's like built in a self doubt, or built in I have to do it because it looks good to other people or something like that. So something. At some point, he lost his childhood innocence, his freedom to just act, and he's become.
Yeah, and he has shame around that change, is what he's saying. He's like, he has shame about the fact that he can't motivate himself intrinsically anymore. That was my understanding.
He has to put pressure on himself.
Right.
He's ashamed of that.
It has to like feel like it's other people will look at me and therefore I have to do good, rather than I can just do my PhD because I want to do my PhD.
Yeah, and it's not just that. There's like a layer here. It's like, okay, not only can I not motivate myself intrinsically anymore, but I notice that I can't do that, and I feel shameful about the fact that I can't do that, right? About the way I now have to motivate
I used
myself.
to be great at this, and now I'm just.
And when you say there's shame there, what does it mean about you to motivate yourself externally? What does that say about you? And again, just holding that and seeing what comes up from this voice.
I mean, I suppose, were it not for that additional motivation that's kind of shoved in there, that I'm not driven enough, or I don't want to do good or be good for just the sake of doing and being good.
So I'm not driven, I don't want to do good for the sake of being good. And what does that mean about you? If you don't want to be good for the sake of being good, what does that say about you? What does that mean about you? Crystallize that feeling into, if you had to crystallize that feeling into a sentence saying, I am or I'm not, what would it mean about you?
It feels like this isn't complete, but
Okay.
that I'm lazy.
Lazy. Okay. So if I motivate myself externally, then I'm lazy. Does that feel true to you?
That is true. I'm just wondering if that's capturing all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What he means is the bad kind of lazy, not the good kind of lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's definitely right here a lazy that I shouldn't be. I can't be that type of lazy. Not the like, I get to relax all the time. I love being lazy. Like this is the bad one.
Yeah. And so I think he's about to go underneath there and find that second part that will make that clear.
How about we explore that part and then we see what else comes up? And
yeah. I mean, I was going to add
Go ahead.
weak. Like
I'm
weak.
lazy and weak. Yeah. Okay. So if I use external motivators, then I'm lazy and weak. Does that feel true?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's look at that with irreverent curiosity. We're not trying to get a yes or a no, or this is true or this is not true. We're just going to explore this. Just going to, with curiosity, explore this belief.
So we're going to go into something called the work here. We're now getting into questioning and beginning to explore some of the limits of the beliefs of these parts.
So Katie Byron stuff?
Yeah, Byron Katie's, yeah.
So just hold this question with that sense of irreverent curiosity, with that sense of, I'm just curious here. Is it true that if you use external motivators, then you're lazy and weak? Just hold that question for a little bit. See what comes up, what pops up around that.
I mean, I feel like I quickly heard a voice that was like defending me, saying, "No, that's smart. That's clever."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Now, with your reverent curiosity, let's explore this question. Can you be absolutely sure that it's true? That if you use external motivation, then you're lazy and weak? Can you be absolutely sure that that's true? Just explore that with your reverent curiosity, not trying to get any answer. Just explore it with curiosity.
Yeah, I have to admit that this one isn't so much of a struggle for me because I think I do understand at a very deep level that these things are so far from being absolutely true.
So the answer is no, it sounds like. He can't be absolutely true.
No.
True. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
Cannot be.
Again, with curiosity, we're going to explore this question. When you believe that having external motivation means you're lazy and weak, how do you react? How do you behave? Who do you become? And what are the consequences? So when you look at that, how does that show up for you, having that belief? What does it mean for you, having that belief? What are the consequences of that? Just hold that with curiosity and see what comes up for you.
So what are the consequences of holding that belief that I know to be either not 100% true or explicitly false?
What are the consequences of holding the belief that having external motivation systems means you're lazy and weak?
Okay.
There are probably both positive and negative consequences, so make sure to explore both of those with curiosity. What's coming up for you?
Just, I think the tension between, is it a good thing or bad thing? Are the consequences positive or negative? I think I'm realizing that it almost is like a nuclear arms race where like the defenses are being built up stronger and stronger on either side. That I have this belief, that I'm weak or lazy. So then I come up with these commitment devices, and then or external motivators, and then the external motivators, as they become larger, make me double down on my belief that I'm weak and lazy. And then if I have that belief that I'm weak and lazy, then I have to have more reliance upon the.
Yeah. So the question is, do those?
So this is pretty big that he's recognizes here. Yeah. I wanted to stop, see if you guys have any thoughts at this point, or where you would go, or what you would do from here.
Well, and it's probably also making the original part stronger and stronger, because it would be resistant as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think. So I'd like to know what the original part thinks of all this at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
External motivators mean that you're weak and lazy, right? That's what we're exploring. What would it be to not think those external motivators mean that you're weak and lazy? How would that change how you relate to this?
I mean, I guess the obvious thing is that there wouldn't be shame. And I could just see them as a useful tool. And potentially a second order effect is potentially less reliance on them.
What would be the negative?
So the interesting thing he said there, if he no longer believed that he needed that needing these tools meant he was weak and lazy, then he would also no longer believe he was weak and lazy. And he might be able to just do it on his own without using any of these tools whatsoever. Yeah, go ahead.
The whole thing would dissolve. Both sides would dissolve at once.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I start to see it as like a spiritual problem that he's got the parts on both sides just creating the battle, and then like if they could all see themselves in what they're doing, they would all just like become dust. And, like, oh, I could just do my PhD without this battle, or not do my PhD without this battle.
Yeah.
So the burning question is, what does he actually want to do? Because he's got two forces of like, one is like, I'm trying to force myself to do this thing, and the other is I'm trying to resist doing this thing in various ways. What does he actually want to do?
As the meat parts, what does he actually want?
Or believed that external motivators mean you're lazy and weak. And again, I don't want you to think too much, just sort of hold that question, see what arises for you.
The negative of that. I mean, I suppose in a world where it was 100% true that I was lazy, weak, and that these were required, and that these were required because of that, you know, the B follows A, then I guess the negative would be like, I just wouldn't have like a true model of myself or the world.
Yeah. But I don't even know. I mean, what would that mean?
There's something going on
in a world where you're lazy and weak.
To you. I think there's something in the way you're asking the question that is not landing for him. He has to like stop and like hold it up there and then like try and fit it in. It's not like, you know, maybe he's not in the place where things can hit him right now, but it's not like, oh, what do I want? Or, oh, like he's grasping at the thing. And I think that's part, you're presenting the offer when you ask the question. He's like considering it there.
Yeah, and this one in particular, I think he's in a place where he's not even seeing any of the negatives of if he got rid of this belief. I like to check this one because it's like, because I don't want people to like just, you know, get in a fantasy. But I think he's in a point where he's like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like there's anything bad about this. I'll make something up because you're asking me. But this one in particular, it was like no parts of him think that that the way that he's structured is correct right now. So he was having to generate a response with some other part of him, with like his intellect, because there was no emotional response to that question.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, why is it not making noise?
But I don't even know. I mean, what would that mean to be in a world where you're lazy and weak? Those are like weird generalizations of like.
Yeah. No, I'm trying I'm trying to fully embrace this, but I don't really believe it to be true.
So let me ask you, and again, just hold this with curiosity. I'm not looking for a yes or a no here. Can you let this belief go that using external motivators means you're lazy and weak? With irreverent curiosity, just hold that question and see what comes up for you.
Yeah, I feel like in the spirit of this exercise, I should try to like.
Just let it go.
Of before about, oh yeah, I don't have to accept this, or it doesn't really mean that I'm lazy and weak. He just looked really happy about that.
Good.
Yeah. There's definitely an opportunity right here to completely shift his framework around this stuff.
Because until now, it's all just, I mean, just looking at his eyes, there's just a lot of pain. Self up.
Some of these a little bit more, and so sorry. Can you repeat the question? I had it.
Can you let this belief go?
Yes. Okay. So if I guess, can I let this belief go? I don't know. It's a really like well-worn groove, like a pattern that we've established. You know, how can we break that linkage between the two?
So it sounds like a maybe, like a I want to, but I'm not sure how, or I'm not sure if I can. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay. But like I don't want to hold the naive belief that it can be easily shed.
Yeah. Okay. The next question will you let this belief go? Again, just with irreverent curiosity.
It feels like looking at where his eyes are and how he's situated, he's embodying cognition. He's like floating up here, and the thing that he needs to do is drop all the way down, let go of the thing, and like it's right the way at the bottom of his belly. That's what he said earlier. He needs to go from I don't think it's gonna work to get down there and be like, oh, I'm gonna let it go.
Yeah, there's a part of him right now that probably has been burned in the past by thinking he could make quick change. Sure. And now that he's in a scenario where he can transform, he's like, but I don't want to let myself think that things are better and they're not actually going to be that way. And so there's some part of him that wants him to be up here and scared of the change, right?
I got the sense that there was a weird thing there that, like, if I drop down and just change it, that's a scary thing to do.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. That could be another thing there as well. Yeah.
Like, why are you afraid of making the change here? And like, it's like pointing to look at the fear that he's having already.
Yeah. So you're thinking that there's maybe a fear of change here, whereas I'm thinking that maybe there's I guess it's a fear of change, but it's a fear of believing the change. Maybe that I was picking up here.
Something standing in the way. I just think generally it's best not to use the word why because it invokes intellectualism. You know, if you say like, "What's stopping you?" or if you're feeling or something like that.
I would probably use phrases like, "I'm curious about that."
Yeah.
Rather than saying why, but say, "I'm curious about this part of you that's feeling lost or whatever."
Yeah, why sort of invites a rationalization.
Yeah, it gets the brain going rather than the emotion.
What would happen if you did this? Or what do you fear would happen? Or what are you concerned about?
Yeah, and so the direction I actually go here, I think, is, again, I've noticed he intellectualizes a lot. So I give him an intellectual reason why it's possible for him to change quickly. I think that's what I end up doing. And I forget if that ends up working or not, but we'll see what happens here.
Will is stronger than can, and if I'm maybe about can, then I think I have to be by definition maybe about will.
Not necessarily. It's not always logical how we respond to these different questions. So be open to whatever comes up. But if you're like, yeah, I'm even less sure about the will, then that's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, I want to, and I think I'm understanding the false belief a little bit more. And that it's, disempowering, that it creates this negative feedback loop.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm like checking in, and
there's like a wake up call he's not getting. I want to be like, ask him again, like, will you drop the belief now? And then like have him like put it around for a while.
Yeah.
Ask it again. Like, when is the now that you will just, get the wake up call from the useless belief?
Just depends what's stopping. You could also just say, I just ask you to hold the fact that it is possible for you to give this belief. Maybe.
Well, it's like motivating. Like he has a fear, right? So we need to do something to make me as a fear, get him over that motivation. Gap to like.
Yeah, that would be.
Like,
Yeah, so with some people, Eliot, I do think that's exactly what I would do in this instance. I would get more intense and I would go, okay, but will you let this go? Right? And I think with him, it would cause, my intuition is it would cause him to go more intellectual. And good.
And it might just provoke a doubling up of whatever's resisting it. Though.
Right.
That's
It's effective you can ask the question yourself, like from a deeper place, like, will you do it? Rather than like, will you do it? Like that'll like drop him in a bit more rather than pull him out of it.
Interesting. Yeah. That is a really good way to go when you get resistance to the Sedona method, is to get more intense with it. I do think that's a very common, useful approach here.
I don't think I actually think I already don't hold the belief as strongly.
Yeah.
Like I think I'm reasoning through it, and I think like just recognizing that and some other insights earlier, just like recognizing things I hadn't really thought about.
Yeah. So integrate those, allow those, and let me know when you're ready for the next question.
But I think in Sedona you're allowed to say no.
Next question.
I mean,
Yeah,
he could have. I have a hunch he didn't know he could have said no, but
Yeah.
in Byron Katie's work, you can also say no. I like this belief.
Or no,
Yeah,
not
I
yet.
mean, I tried to several times be whatever comes up is okay, yes is okay, no is okay. Curiosity. Yeah.
But in IFS, there's no such thing as resistance.
Yeah,
There's just
resistance
another
is
part.
another part.
Resistance is another part.
Yeah.
That has its reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we'll see what happens.
Question.
He knows
can I
that
let
he
it go?
can.
Maybe will I let it go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Say again.
He knows that he can give it up. He knows that that's an option. At least. That's dawned on him, I'm sure.
Yeah, so I feel like the next process is opening the door bigger, so that it's not just an option. It's an option that I can take, and an option that I will take, and an option that is easy to take and is the best option. So it's like invite the possibility and then like drive it home to like the best idea.
I'd have a different opinion, and I think that has to ultimately come from him.
Oh, of course.
As to
Yeah.
whether that is actually a thing he can do now.
Yeah. Well, he needs to be convinced of it. You can't push him over the line. He needs to ultimately.
Yeah.
Well, there might be some deep thing that's stopping him doing it.
Yeah. The PhD
Yeah.
might have an idea. We don't know that.
Or
He knows his PhD better than we do.
It might be that if he stops believing this, then so my read of this, what he's been, all the answers that he's been giving is, I want to, but I don't trust that it happens that quickly, right? And like, I don't want to let myself think I have the change and then not have it. And so that's my read of that, is that like, if he believed that the change was possible, then the change would happen. It's not like he doesn't want the change to happen. It's more like he doesn't want to let himself believe that the change could happen. I wonder what your guys' thoughts are on that.
You could even think of that as another part that is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Like entry part here that's like, I'm not sure if that's going to work. It's got some doubt for protective reasons, obviously.
Yeah.
I've started to let it go already. Next question is, when will you let this belief go?
Right.
Just with irreverent curiosity, asking. Sometimes the answer is now, sometimes the answer is never, sometimes the answer is, after this happens.
Is there any reason why we can't let it go immediately? Not really. There's no like commitments to this. There's really no downside to letting it go.
So when will you let this belief go?
I suppose now.
Well, I'm not.
I
hear the phrase, I suppose.
Nah.
I suppose.
Yeah.
Like, I expect to see him literally get lighter when he's like, oh, the weight has been lifted off my shoulders.
There's something
Yeah.
there that he.
He's still, he's not like, oh,
It's like he's thinking there's a thing, I don't want to know about it, or I don't want to admit it, or I can't find something, but there's a thing. So
we'll see what happens.
go process.
I think that I'm nervous that like it shouldn't
There
be
it
that
is.
easy. And again, like having some like healthy skepticism that, if bad thoughts were that easy to shed, then no one would have them.
Yeah. So there's a belief here that change has to be difficult, or the world will look quite different, right? So I want to step out a second here from this internal work we're doing, and just address that from a science point of view. There's a process that scientists have discovered in the last.
There's not just this feels too easy, but there was also an I think there. Like he's one step away from just this feels too easy. He's still and like he's given himself an out. Like, I think this feels too easy.
Yeah.
Now that could be like he could solve the feels too easy, and the I think would just that was it. But it might also be, I think in this case, it's aligned, but sometimes the word I think is the like I think my problem is, and it's an
excuse.
It's an excuse.
Not the
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Right. It's like, but people can use it in defensive ways. It's something I watch like everyone do all the time.
Yeah,
and
and
like,
in this case, go ahead.
don't work against it, work with it, because people don't often realize that they're doing it.
In this case, the thing that's causing him to say "I think" is, I think, the same part of him that's causing him to not want to do this thing, right? It's the intellectualizing part of him that's like wants to think through everything, be aware of all the consequences, caveat all of the beliefs. So it's possible that him saying "I think" throughout this is the same part of him that does not want to allow this change to happen, or does not want to believe that this change could happen.
So my relationship with the phrase "I think" went through a bunch of different stages. There was not noticing it there, like entirely, like it's just the fluff people throw into sentences, and then there was the like noticing and calling people out on it, which is, you know, bad therapeutic behavior. Just call people out every time they say the words "I think." And then there was being able to see through it a bit, and then there was now I can work with it. That it seems the phrase "I think" here is tied to the part, and if I was completely ignoring it, I wouldn't have caught that it was tied to the part, and I wouldn't have been able to recognize what he's doing there, that he's half believing and capturing it and bringing those the "I thinks," I suppose, into the session with us. Like that's completely part of the session.
Yeah. That's I like that progression. I think I went through the same progression with like noticing when people switch from first person to second person. Right?
I like that one.
Yeah. When they go from "well, I think" to, you know, "when you feel this, then."
I had a friend who, it was something like, when I don't do my homework, you fail. And it was just such a that they were beating themselves up for not doing their homework, and they were externalizing the "you fail," like, you know, "you fail" thing. And I pointed it to them, and they did their work on it and all the rest. But you know, when I don't do the work, I fail. When you don't do the work, you fail. Like, those are both true in different ways.
Yeah.
Perspectives. I watch all sorts of emotion words and things that sort of sneak around the edges.
So at this point, I would be trying to look into what is stopping him from letting go of the belief. There's something there. That would be, you know, and like some of these IFS processes, I've had like up to 13 parts. You know, and like one of the traps is to try and sort of browbeat the parts or talk them out of their thing, and they'll just come back later. A lot of the even in Sedona, you give the person the option of, you know, maybe tomorrow, or, you know, and if he does need to intellectualize it and think it through, then tomorrow he'll be able to do it.
Yeah.
He will think it through while he's sleeping or whatever,
and maybe tomorrow the part will come back and be all like,
I'm good.
I actually need this one thing, and that's all I need.
Yeah.
And you can be like, oh, no worries.
Yeah.
I can reassure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what I do here is I give the intellectual part an intellectual reason here, and I don't know. This might be just browbeating it. I'll see what you guys think of the move I do here.
Oh, we got no sound.
No sound.
Again. No. So the idea, they used to have this internal work where that, you know, change has to be difficult, or the world will look quite different, right? So I want to step out a second here from this internal work we're doing and just address that from a science point of view. There's a process that scientists have discovered in the last 30 years or so called memory reconsolidation. Have you heard of this?
No.
No. So the idea, they used to think, and this was sort of the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy, that you had your short-term memory, and then as soon as something was in your long-term memory, it basically was in your brain forever, unless you got brain damage, right? And so they believed that the only way to overcome negative beliefs was to have some other belief and
reinforce it enough that it fired instead of the old belief, right? So this is what CBT is based on. Every time you have a negative belief, you would sort of question that, and then you would counter it with a positive thought. And then if you did that enough, you would have the positive thought instead of the negative one. But in the past 30 years or so, they discovered this thing called memory reconsolidation, which means that if you can activate an old, what's called an emotional schema or an emotional memory, that is an emotional knowing that X is bad or Y is bad, and it's usually tied to these sorts of beliefs, right? Like that sort of thing. If you can activate it, and while it's activated, you can question it. And then while it's questioned, while questioning it, you can learn and create a new belief that it can actually, instead of this process of having to be permanent, you can actually change the old emotional schema, the old belief. And this process makes sense evolutionarily, right? It makes sense to have a way to change old beliefs, but it makes sense for that process to be quite hard to access. Because emotional memories are there for a reason, right? If a tiger came after you in a field, you want to remember not to go to that field, but you also want to be able to go to that field if the tiger moves away or something. So the process we just went through of really accessing that belief by getting deep into it and understanding it, and then while accessing it, questioning it, and then creating this new belief, right, is that memory reconsolidation process. And the reason that people don't just stumble upon this randomly is that people, it's very hard to stay inside a belief while questioning it. And what we've been doing for the past hour and 20 minutes is to get to that point where we can do that. So I don't expect that to totally change your mind right away, but be open to the fact that change can happen quickly and permanently through memory reconsolidation.
Okay.
So I want to now step back. I want to put aside again to the side.
So what are your guys' thoughts on just sort of throwing that intellectual reason out there and then letting the part chew on that while moving on?
I think I would do it in the other order. I would be like, try this. Feel really hard into the one side of the belief. Feel it, imagine it, get it really live. Feel the other side, feel really hard. Try and get the emotional shift and then give the explanation if the person is after it. Like, I mean, it's up to you. It's therapeutic styles. If I had a really anxious person, I find sometimes I like seek consent before I ask each question. Like, I'm about to ask you a question that will drop you into an emotion. Are you okay to keep going? And I'll do a lot of that. And I find that I do it spontaneously, and it feels weird because other people I don't ask it at all. But then certain people like they want. You need to speak their language, and okay. So how are you relating that to this? I agree with that, by the way. This whole explanation, like you had an impression that he needed this explanation before he did it.
Yeah, so that was the problem. And, it's good information in any case, and you explained it quite well. I would sort of slightly strengthen that it's more than question. You have to find some way to contradict the belief, I think.
Yeah.
It's not just questioning it, but, going from one belief to the opposite kind of thing is the most powerful one. Yeah, so you just have to see whether it was an intellectual concern that these things can't happen quickly.
Yes.
Or a deeper thing that, you've got to pay your dues or you don't deserve something.
Yeah.
It was invited. So you did the plant the seed of possibility. That's one of the most important parts here. And then that seed can grow to oh, maybe I can change. Oh, yes, I can change. But so a lot of what you were saying is there's a seed here that you might not have seen before.
Yeah. And it's good information to have, for sure. I think that's a huge discovery, that memory reconsolidation. I think absolutely huge.
Yeah.
I would definitely I'd be using it.
Say again?
It's something I use as well. The number of tools we've gone through in watching this, I can name them all because I've used them all as well. Over a long journey of self-development, I have picked up many, many tools. So have you. So has Tim. Like, this is what we both read the book on memory reconsolidation. We both read the book on IFS. I think Tim's read the book on core transformation as well. Like,
Sure. Yeah, Sedona.
Sedona, he's read the Sedona
Yeah.
book. Like, I've read 20% of it, but I got enough of it. Like, we all know these methods because these are an amazing grab bag of useful tools.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Okay, so let's see. Yeah, go ahead.
We'll just have to see what his core problem was. Was it an intellectual concern or was it something?
And I could have, like, one choice would have been now that you know that, let's go right back and try it. I think that would have been definitely the wrong thing to do here. You want to let that marinate a little bit, I think. That's my intuition here.
Where he's at. I mean, I would be doing states. So if I caught someone hesitating, I'd be pointing that out. Hey, you seem to be hesitating right now. What's going on with that? And I would, like, try and keep my client in self-awareness of what's going on for them as much as I can. Then they can, like, you know, it was there anyway. They just, you know, he's got the thing behind him still that he hasn't quite looked. It'd be too easy that he's like his way around to seeing these details. If you can pick it, then you can name it for him. Then he can be like, yeah, that was there. Yeah, that was there. Yeah, I did have fear in going from here to there. Like, and then he can, like, as he acknowledges, like, it's way easier to work with them. So I'd be trying to, I'm still working on training my intuition because sometimes I have an intuition, I'm like, I shouldn't tell them because that's confronting. And I'm working up for myself with more and more practice, getting good at saying the confronting thing anyway, because I keep getting good results when I call it out. And really do that is to practice it. Practice being. I
definitely went through a period of coaching that was very heavy on the confronting side of it. And now a lot of times I think I'll do the thing that used to be confronting, but it'll almost be an aside. It won't feel confronting. Right. And only occasionally do I still do the, like, thing in a way that it feels confronting to the person.
Right. It's rare that I get a no. I'll be like, hey, it looks like you're feeling fear in moving from, like, I think to I feel. Is that true? And like 99% I get the yes. And if I get a no, then there's something even more interesting that I find because they said no. And that's like a practice thing. Like with work, with a good therapist has practiced, you know, we've run over the grooves of these realizations enough time that we know that it's a left turn coming up or a right turn coming up.
To do some good in the world, wants freedom, wants choices and opportunities, and through that, greater happiness. The part of you that maybe used to believe that you're not intrinsically motivated and that external motivators mean you're lazy and weak. And just set that aside for a moment. Again, with the promise that we will come back to it later. And I want you to allow yourself to re-access that part of you that has overwhelm and uncertainty, that wants him to have as little pain and disappointment as possible, and through that allow him to be happy. And you might find it's a little different than it was before after going through the process that we went through earlier and the process we just did. But I want you to, again, to allow yourself to start voicing some of the thoughts from that voice, to really get back in touch with this voice and welcome it and talk with it.
Yeah, I think it's hard to engage that now having a different perspective.
Say again?
It's not that I think thing still there.
Okay.
Hopefully we get to it by the end of the session. Like,
so let's go a different way then.
I mean, I'm happy to try, but
yeah. So another way to do it, because we don't want to access something that's no longer there. We can accidentally recreate when you're in this. It's called a labile state when you've just done a memory reconsolidation, and during that time you have a chance to learn a new pattern. Now, if we accidentally relearn the old pattern in that time, that's something we don't want to do. So rather than trying to pull up something that you're not quite sure is the same, instead, let's do the exercise we did at the beginning and continue now to plug in your drive and go back to working on your PhD, and just notice if there's any sorts of resistance or anything coming up to do that. Now, if not, if you're totally fine, what we can do is go right on to integrating this new perspective. But if there is still some resistance, we can go into working with that.
Yeah, I will tell you that I feel like calmer and at peace. And I don't know, like an emotion that I'm feeling. I don't know. I don't think it's really an emotion, but something I'm feeling now that I wasn't feeling prior is like genuine curiosity about what I'm doing, as opposed to dread.
Yeah.
And that's nice. Like that's something that's the feeling you kind of always want to have when you're entering a project.
Keep going. I want to check here. It's good to be sure here. It's very easy when we've made a change to not notice there's another layer of resistance or another layer of thing underneath. Just keep going and see how that goes, right? So I was surprised here, which is why I'm really pushing to check. But it appears that after going through the Sedona method, the Byron Katie's the work, and giving the explanation, memory reconsolidation, that something deep has gone on behind the scenes. So, but like you guys, I was a little bit skeptical. There's a lot of think and a lot of hedging. So I'm really trying to check here. I'm not hearing you, Eliot. Good.
Leave that thing that he said there when he's like, I can work with some new possibility. Well, he didn't say possibility. He said, when I said earlier, it's like he's carrying the backpack of all how hard this work is. Now he's not a bit, he's got a bit more beginner's mind. Like, I can look at what I'm doing. The sound of his voice, it sounds like he is in that place of, I don't know if it will last. Like, if he spends a whole day on his PhD, will he go, PhDs are way harder than I want them to be. I don't want to do it. But at least he's got the start of new possibility, which may, that may create enough space to get him to where he needs to go.
Yeah. As you begin to start looking at, okay. Sorry, did you have something, Tim?
No, go on.
Okay, where do I start? How do I start?
Yeah, like for example, so I guess like talking through this process is useful. So like I said, I have this external hard drive. It's got all my files on it. I plug it in, and then I load up this software called Stata, which is what economists use, and I'm like loading my data file. And I think even just like getting to this point, I even like have joked that like this should be, one of my weekly goals is literally just to open the data. Because I was literally struggling at that point. I was struggling. I would make excuses. I'd become so good at making excuses for why I can't do this now. I'm not in the right headspace, or I don't feel like doing.
So without meaning to here, he's now talking about the past tense of how he used to behave, which is an indication that maybe there's something deep here that's gone on under the surface.
Doing it, and I want to write instead, or I want to read, or I'm always trying to do more like background reading. Like, I don't think I know the topic well enough. I need to better understand what I'm dealing with before I actually do some of the data work.
Yeah. So as you're here now, are you feeling that now?
No. I think that like and I appreciate your skepticism as well. That I think that I am like curious, that I have like this. It's funny. I'm looking at like a whiteboard, and I feel like I have like a clean slate that I'm working from.
Yeah. Great.
That I've like kind of unloaded some of this crap, this emotional baggage.
Yeah. All right. So what we're gonna do now, this is, like I said, we've got this.
Doing in a whole PhD that, I say it with business that you meet yourself in the market. PhDs are sort of the same. You find the bits of you that don't know how to work. You find the procrastination. You find every part of you, and congratulations, he found it.
And he's not the only PhD student who's had this problem.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's almost like a meme.
I've heard the line that there comes in a day in your PhD life where you think, what the fuck am I doing? I could just go start a bakery. That would be way better than doing this. Yeah. And you really question your entire existence. And then you go start your bakery or brewery. I know someone who started a brewery in the middle of their PhD and dropped their PhD, or you PhD and you complete your PhD. Like, this is, like you said, the meme of PhDs.
Yeah, I mean, I go ahead, Tim.
Got himself into a kind of tangle around all this, and I think it's like he sort of untangled some of it.
Yeah.
And now he can make a bit of a fresh start. So whether it'll all pile up again and there's some deeper issues remains to be seen.
So he did say clean slate, and I agree. I have a hunch that some of these things might come back. So he's successfully got beginner's mind now, but he's going to have to do that tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And I don't know if he's like repetitive habit of the beginner's mind. He's also only done it once with you, which is itself incredible. Like, he can open the data file. Like, that's a very real problem. Like that. Like.
Yeah, so I think one of the things you do here when you're in this labile state, one of the things you really want to do is check, like you were saying, over time. Okay, can you do this tomorrow? Can you do this in a week? I think I'm going to do that later, because that's one of the things. If you can during this time, this sort of magical labile state when new things can be added to this new way of seeing, if you can add that time element, sometimes you can prevent some of those snapback effects that you see.
This 30-minute to 3-hour reconsolidation window. And this is a really cool time period because you have an opportunity during this window to shape your experience of work now and for every time you access the schema. Anytime when you used to feel that sense of dread, you have an opportunity now to feel a new thing and shape what that feeling is. So one of the things that can be really, really powerful here is to notice what would be the optimal feelings, stance, work, way to move forward here. So I want you to just get in touch now with the sense of genuine curiosity and blank slateness, the feelings, the images, the thoughts. And you can almost step out of yourself. Imagine there's sort of a hologram in front of you of yourself with this feeling of curiosity and blank slateness. And just look at that. And look at the task in front of you of writing the PhD. And, any other time you might want this curiosity and blank slateness, other places. And as you look at this hologram, you see the energies coming off of it and the sounds. You can even sort of maybe put your hand out and feel that energy of curiosity moving forward. You can ask yourself, is there anything I could add to this Andrew, this version of myself, that would be even more powerful? Could I add love or excitement or focus? Is there anything else I can add here that would be, I think, could be even more powerful? And as you do that, is anything coming up for you?
Like what are useful qualities for the state? Is that what you're asking roughly?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Focus, non-distraction. Distraction
so let's
is
start with focus.
crippling for me.
Let's take things one at a time. So if you think of a time when you were really focused, can you pull up a time now and sort of step into a memory of a time you were really focused in the way that would be useful for this state?
I mean, is this discussion like an okay example? Because I was just observing that I can't believe that 90 minutes has passed.
Yeah.
And I feel like one of the things that's a useful indicator of whether time is dragging is like how often you check the clock. And like I literally had no concept of time for a while.
Yeah. So
and that's like so nice of a flow. Like when you're in a flow state. Sorry to interrupt, but like the flow state is like that time is just passing quickly.
Yeah. So I want you to take now the sense of focus you have right now, and I want you to notice what that's like, and add that to the hologram now in front of you, to that version of Andrew that has that calm, blank slateness. Adding this sense of focus. Now, noticing how the color may change color or may change a bit as you add this sense of focus to it. And let me know when that process feels as complete as you can get it.
Is there somewhere in particular that you picked your state shifting stuff from? Is it
This particular process I'm going through, there's this guy Eric von Sydow. He has some meditations called the Masculine Matrix and the Feminine Force, and I picked up this particular process from those.
right? Cool. Yeah, I mean, I do state things, but I don't. I feel like I nicked them, some of them from NLP, but I haven't really got a good scaffold for it. I just wing it.
No, I hadn't seen that before. I mean, it sort of ties in with the memory reconsolidation material that you were talking about to him before. But yeah, that's just so, it looks so powerful to me. Say, okay, you can program yourself into these things.
Yeah.
But in this window.
Oh, in the memory consolidation window, right?
Is that what you're saying? Well,
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
yeah. Okay. So you create that fluidity, and then you compile things into it. Yeah.
But just to integrate that for a second, I want you to step back into the hologram and feel what it's like to have that sense of curiosity with that sense of focus integrated. And when you felt that, you can go ahead and step out and look at the hologram again. Looking at this hologram, is there anything else that you can add here that would make this experience even more powerful, even more enjoyable, and even more functional?
I want to be strong and sexy. Wait.
I'm trying to compile my list of qualities.
Yeah.
I guess like sharpness. I mean, I don't know to what degree I can control this, but like obviously being sharp is very useful.
Yeah.
When you're trying to work.
Okay.
Present, but I guess that's kind of the non-distracted.
Yeah. So this sort of present sharpness or the sharp presentness. Yeah. So can you think of a memory now where you had that sharp presentness, where that present sharpness?
It feels like it's fleeting. I'm trying to think of instances where I felt
That's
it.
okay.
Like
so you
I've
can
been
think
aware
of
of it.
It doesn't have to be a memory that's 10 minutes long. It could be a memory that's 30 seconds long, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Because as long as you can access that state, we can then extend that. Stepping into that memory, feeling that moment, noticing how your body is, how your thoughts are, noticing if your posture is any different. Stepping into that moment of present sharpness. And once you feel that energy, adding this to the hologram. Once again, stepping back into the hologram, and I want you to feel how all of these now are interacting. This present sharpness, this focus, this curiosity and blank slateness. And take a moment to really feel how that feels, to feel all of those together now. And I'm going to allow you to add one more thing to this. I do want to do some other integration stuff to make sure this is integrated in other areas of your life. But feel that now. Feels good, huh?
Yeah, I don't even know if there's room for much more.
Yeah. It's amazing how good we can feel. I mean,
I was gonna say it feels like I'm building a superhero. Like, I want to build a superhero that tackles academic work. How would I assemble such a superhero?
Exactly. So go ahead, step out, notice the hologram again, and notice if there's anything else we want to add here. And I want to think about if there's something here, right? If you're imagining this not just in a moment.
So now I want to check over time, like Eliot was saying, and seeing if there's anything missing that would cause this to fail over time.
Yeah. I wonder, sort of wondering how deep this has gone. Like, this is a state shift to state shift, but to get it more state to a state, like he can have this state permanently, is I don't know if he has that yet.
Yeah, the only way to really check is when we do our follow-up. Yeah.
Integration is hard. It's always hard.
For an hour or 6 hours or 7 hours or days, And as you imagine feeling this for a long time, is there something that's missing? Whether it be self-care or compassion, or something totally different when you imagine this over a long period of time. Is there anything here that you want to add to make this complete?
Like within this hologram?
Within this hologram, yeah. Any sense or thing that you need in order to make this sustainable over a long period of time?
I mean, it's just so far removed from anything I've known for a long time that it's like asking someone, hey, what do you think the potential problems would be if someone gave you $1 billion?
Yeah.
I don't think it's easy. I don't think it's easy to come up with like problems with that. You just think about all the benefits.
Here's one way to do it, okay? So you can imagine in your mind, I'm having this for an hour, okay? Just imagine that. And I don't want you to like imagine it's good. I just want you to like project, right? Project what would happen if you had this for an hour. Notice that.
Mm-hmm.
Now project a full day of having this. And just notice what would happen, what that would be like. Now project a full week of feeling like this. Notice what would happen, what that would be like. Projecting out now to a month. And it's at this point that you may start to notice a tiny bit of resistance or a tiny bit of worry. Is anything coming up for you?
I mean, I think that maybe I was on the edge of this before, but I mean, if I'm really getting into this, and you know, I can fully embrace this, that a potential problem would be like work-life balance. Like if I'm deriving so much pleasure, if this state is like euphoric, I would imagine I might not ever want to leave it.
Yeah. So what trait, sense, feeling, knowledge, wisdom can you add to this sense that would allow you to maintain that work-life balance?
Again, this one is tough because I feel like I'm already like it feels like I said, like a superhero, but yeah, maybe there is like I don't know, some of the words I'm thinking are like temperance or moderation or wisdom. I know wisdom's a good one because it, you know, kind of has more than one application outside of, you know, moderating this state.
So can you think of a time when you were in that wise or higher state memory, when you had a lot of that wisdom?
Yeah, this one's tougher. I'm not coming up with an obvious one. I mean, it's not a quality that I think of. Like I don't say, oh, I feel like I'm wise.
Do you have a memory of someone else who maybe had that wisdom, a time that you interacted with them? So when someone says they want a quality, that means they have some referent for what that is and what that would be like. You just got to find it, right?
Yeah, I would go for, I would ask, what does that feel like? Or where do you find that in the body? Like, where do you find temperance? And just like pull it in, right?
Yeah. That could have been another way to go here, is like, yeah, where would you locate that?
Yeah, that could work. Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to step into that memory, but rather than stepping into you, step into what they were thinking and feeling as they were interacting with you. And notice what it's like to be them from the inside and feel that wisdom. So you're seeing yourself. You're feeling that wisdom, and it's not magical or mystical. It's just another human having a quality. And allowing yourself now to notice how to add that wisdom to the hologram in front of you. The hologram that feels that clean slate curiosity, that feels that sense of focus, and that feels, what was the last one? The last quality we talked about?
Sharp and
yeah,
present.
Sharpness. That's right. Yeah. So adding now the wisdom to all that, noticing how it changes, how it grows, what shifts inside this hologram. And now I want you, once again, to step back in that hologram. Feel how all those qualities feel together. Notice how your mind is moving, how your feelings are changing, how your posture shifts. And really step in, and we're going to integrate all that process now.
Yeah, it's interesting building it, like stepping back and building the thing and then putting it on. I think I would probably more often try and build it on. But
yeah. I think I frequently do this move of stepping out or dissociating from a part before you make a change to it. I don't know why. I think I have the intuition that sometimes when I do changes internally, people can get lost. People can sort of get lost in the part or in the loops. I don't know why I do it like that, but that's a sort of common pattern I do a lot of times.
But I think another benefit would be that he is practicing stepping into this mode.
Stepping in and out, yeah.
So that's very useful to be able to, okay, now I'm sitting down to study, I'm going into this thing, boom.
Mm.
So that could
Yeah,
be
that's a good
useful.
point as well.
Interesting.
Would you mind doing a favor? Could you read them one more time?
Yeah. So you've got that sense of clean slate curiosity. You've got that sense of sharpness. You've got that sense of wisdom. And what's the last one? I don't have it written down here.
Present.
Yeah.
Present. Yeah.
So you had the present sharpness, you had the wisdom, you had the clean slate curiosity, and you had the focus. That was the last
Has
one.
something going on for you that you forgot the word present twice?
No, fourth time.
Four
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. Yep.
Being present or something.
Yeah. I had combined the sharp presentness, and I kept going back just to the sharpness accidentally when I was
You would keep
when I
saying
was
that.
going back. Yeah, I wasn't present with the presentness.
Feel similar to you.
Mhm.
So allow yourself now to feel that, to step into that, to breathe that, all of those things at once. Where are you feeling that in your body?
I think I feel like a warmth. I feel like larger, stronger.
Okay.
Like I almost feel like a swelling of all these qualities.
So sit with that. And in fact, let's not sit with it. Let's stand up now for a moment. One way that we can begin to integrate some of these feelings is through movement, posture, and breath. So I just want yourself, as you're feeling this.
So now we're like Eliot was talking at the beginning about the different channels that a part can express itself. And now we're trying to integrate as many of those channels as possible as we're in the integration step here.
I probably don't use it as much as I should. Getting some movement up with the integration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm learning a new modality right now called Psych K, which is about finding the postures that can integrate different feelings or can make different parts of you stronger and weaker. If I had known that back when I was doing this thing, I would have done it now, because you'll see he has a little bit of trouble. He's not very in his body. He doesn't know how to express this through movement or stance right now.
Not suppress any sort of movement, breath thing you're feeling. Allow yourself to feel these feelings, and then ask, what am I suppressing? And stop suppressing it. If you want to move around, you can. If you want to stand still, you can. Let that feeling integrate through movement, through breath. No need to suppress anything. want you to think of a time now in the past when you were acting through your old sense. Perhaps this sense that you were lazy or weak.
So now we're going for reference experiences. This is another integration thing you want to do here, getting as many different reference experiences for how this could show up as possible. Just more integration along different dimensions.
Perhaps this sense that you didn't want to disappoint yourself. You didn't want to disappoint yourself, and so you didn't want to work. Are you having a memory when you acted through one of those senses or schemas?
Let me try to call one up.
Yeah.
It's funny, like it was something I could get to really easily and quickly before, and now it's this is funny. When you were saying it, as soon as you said it, my inner voice is like, fuck that. No.
Yeah. That's perfect. And what we want to do now is get some new reference experiences so that you're not just feeling this, but you actually know how to express it in different circumstances. So once you have a memory of that old sense, let me know.
Okay.
Yep. So you can put it, like I was saying before, as almost a TV screen on the wall, watching that old Andrew acting in that old way. And just watch through it once and see what you notice. Okay, have you done that?
Yep.
Okay. Now, I want you to imagine what it would have been like for that Andrew to have this new sense, this clean slate curiosity, this present sharpness, this wisdom, and this focus. And run through it a few times. Notice how it would have been different until it feels resonant with what you're feeling right now. Until you're like, yes, that's what would have happened. That's how it would have been to have this new sense in that moment. And here's how it would have gone differently. So run through it as many times as you need until you've gotten to that point where you're like, yes, that's correct, and then let me know.
Yep.
Great. And now I want you to imagine, now rather than having it up on the wall, I want you to step in to this new memory and feel how it would have.
So there's that same pattern where you disassociate, you make a change, then you reassociate. And again, I don't know why, it just seems to work better when I do it that way. I don't know exactly why I do it that way. Yeah.
Maybe it's relevant to you and your style. Like each artist have their own style. Like
yeah.
Have this feeling in that moment and run through and really feel how it is to act through this sense in this memory. And let me know when you've done that.
Yep.
Great. Now, once again, stepping out, noticing the picture or frame or movie. And what we're going to do is we're going to take now this old memory that you had and this new reference experience of how it would have been to act in this new way. And I want you to connect them somehow. You can paperclip them together or put them back to back or somehow connect them so that you know, okay, this is how I was, and now here's how I could be in the future. And we're going to take this memory, and I want you, these two memories that are now connected, and I want you to put it away somewhere in your mind in a new space for this new feeling. It could be a file drawer or a memory stick or a giant wall of different memories. We're going to start a new database in your mind, all of the reference experiences for how to act through this clean slate curiosity, present sharpness, wisdom, and focus. Okay, so go ahead and take a moment now to slot it in to that new section in your mind. And let me know when you've created that and done that. And then we're going to sit down and we're going to add a whole bunch more of these reference experiences to that place. Okay, have you done that?
Yes.
Great. So I want you to think now and run through. And you're just going to go through and spend 5 minutes or so here, starting from when you were very young, when you were just born, right? And we're just going to go through the major periods of your life, maybe when you were at different schools, when you had different relationships, when you were in different parts of the country. And as you do, I just want you to notice any times when you had this old sense. Bring those up and notice how it would have been to act in this new way. When you do that, you can add them to this new space in your mind that you just created. Notice, okay, now there's 2, now there's 3, now there's 4, now there's 5. We're just going to run through your whole life like that. Okay?
So if we really want to make sure that he knows not just the feeling, but the actions, this is a really good way to do it. We're just piling on the reference experiences. We're adding them to the database, strengthening that self-concept of knowing how to act this way. Yeah, any thoughts you guys have about where we've gone with this integration stuff?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we're actually integrating.
Hmm.
Or if this is all like mental dance right now.
Just allowing and noticing any times when you were at.
Personally, I find it convincing. I've been furiously making notes because I'm going to use this myself.
Oh, worth a shot.
And the business about going through the past lives and imagining yourself doing the different thing or feeling a different way. I was involved with a thing called the Trading Tribe with Ed Sakota, and we used to use that, and I found it very effective. So once you'd reprogrammed yourself, you then go back through your past life and really cements it beautifully.
Yeah, I guess my skepticism comes, I work a lot kinesthetically. I work with the body. And so if the process we're doing doesn't feel in my body like we've got it into a person's body, it feels like it hasn't gone in yet.
Yeah. So with some people, say with the thing with the reprogramming the schema outside and then going back in, that would probably work better for people who are more visual like me. To me, that makes perfect sense. Whereas kinesthetically, if you were doing the reliving the past life things, you would have to actually feel yourself in the body doing those things, I guess. Whereas to me, it's to just imagine it.
Yeah.
So it would.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So if someone was more kinesthetic, you don't want to get out of that because then the feelings are over there rather than in here.
Yeah, I have a big problem trying to get myself to be more visual so that I can work with people who are primarily visual. I mean, I can often see that things are changing, but I can't feel it in the same way that I'm like, oh, you need to turn to the left slightly, or oh, what's the thing on your lower hip here that I can do kinesthetically with self-aware of their body in that way.
So as a therapist, you need to be able to do those different things with different people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As a patient.
Yeah.
Okay, I just think this is fantastic, this integration myself.
We were talking earlier today, looking for something like a state shift or integration method.
For me, yes, because I've had to give up coffee for medical reasons, and I'm complaining that I can't concentrate. And so we're trying to work out ways I can get into that state. So this is just solid gold for me.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear if you end up using it. All right, here we go.
Old way, and what would it have been like in that instance to act in the new way, and then add that next to all these other instances. Okay.
So by the way, if people are wondering where this particular thing is coming from, this is very similar to self-concept work from Steve Andreas. I got a lot of this integration work from what he does.
Who was that again?
Steve Andreas.
Steve Andreas.
Andreas.
The book Transform Yourself, was that Steve?
Yeah.
I thought you read that book too.
Transform Yourself. No, I don't think so.
Do that. Let me know.
We have this funny thing where I send him books and he's read them, and he sends me books and we just so we're trying to race each other.
I'm trying to keep my bag. It's 3 digits. Okay. All right. All good.
All right. Here we go.
When you're done.
What's an appropriate amount of time to, what's the verb to describe this? What's the amount of time to imagine that switch?
As long as you
situation?
need to
Okay.
make it happen. It might take longer for the first few, and then as you get sort of more of a sense of what these look like, it might be a little bit quicker as you move along.
Okay.
So you just went through the whole thing?
I've compiled maybe a dozen.
That's great. So now check in. Does this sense feel more grounded? Does it feel sort of more solid in you now having this dozen reference experiences?
Yeah, it feels like a software update.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So do we have time? We don't have that much time to do more integration stuff. But the number one thing you can do in the next 30 minutes to 3 hours during this reconsolidation window is acting through this new sense. So if you have time in the next little bit here to actually work on your PhD, I recommend you get in touch with these feelings and try to do that, even if it's just for 5 to 10 minutes, so that you have not only these imagined reference experiences, but also real life reference experiences that can get jammed in there during that reconsolidation window.
I scheduled this session quite strategically. I have office hours after this, so I have 2 hours of forced time, at my desk where I can practice this.
Great.
Nice.
Okay, perfect. So we're coming up on the 2 hour mark here. Yeah. So what do you think?
I was nervous and skeptical, I think, and fearful that like I wasn't going to have anything positive come out of it. But yeah, I think that even from the very beginning, I felt like I tapped into some stuff I hadn't tapped into before, and I think that was huge. I think that I consciously or unconsciously felt stuck. Like I couldn't change these thought patterns and behaviors, but this is just the way it was going to be. That I had to figure out. I just had to make peace with this is how my personality is. This is how life is.
Yeah.
And I don't think I at all appreciated how plastic, these things can be.
Yeah. All right, that's a good place to stop. I think, as we go over a little bit more about what he thought and logistics and stuff. But yeah, overall thoughts, anything we want to discuss, questions we want to cover. Yeah, what do you guys think?
Obviously, you have a very eclectic approach, but it's all worked out or seemed to work really well together. I mean, you didn't do a classic IFS thing. You didn't talk about X styles or whatever. But yeah, I think, you got there. I mean, once you've got these tools, it's quite robust. So I think the whole reprogramming thing at the end, I think is quite exciting to me. And I'll be following that up. So
The variety of tools, I think it's a me thing as well. I get bored of using the same tools. And so I go for a variety. Or also some problems just hit a wall, or like some tools get tired. You can't use the same tool in the same person, because obviously last session put up this thing else. You got to find tools to view the same slightly different problems. So I mean, I love them.
the only other thing I would say is a couple of times I thought you hadn't picked up on things, but later it was clear that you had actually picked up those things, but you just hadn't chosen to pursue them at the time. So it takes some of those things back.
It's an interesting like problem. I was talking about this in the last episode as well, where something, you notice something and like it might not be the right thing for that person to talk about it at that moment, to hear at that moment. I wonder if you guys have any thoughts on that. Like I think when I first started this, I wanted to show how smart I was by showing like all of the things I was picking up and all of the like Eliot was saying, challenging every single thing. But another thing I'll just show here is real quickly, I'll show how this fits into my whole process. If people are wondering how I'm thinking about this stuff, how I'm going through this, I'm usually looking for whatever presents to me at the time, whether that be feelings, beliefs, metaphors, or memories. So for him, it was beliefs in the form of internal voices. So I went with tools that could work with that. So I had him use mantras and say the things, which is kind of a bioemotive framework. And then we moved into acceptance. We used Ho'oponopono and the Sedona method here. We went through introspection, which was sort of a relaxed mental inquiry thing. And then we went into questioning. We didn't use the left belief process there. We used Byron Katie's The Work. And so at any time, if I encountered resistance, I could have moved back to a previous step and gone there. I had gone through the work and still not finding any sort of change, I would have moved forward and we would have gone into dialoguing between these two parts that we were working with, but we found a change before that, so we went right on to integration, which is not in this particular model. It's not in this particular image. But so that's, if people are wondering, like, what I was thinking about, I was just trying to go gradually from activating and accepting to gradually more and more challenging over time until we got to that reconsolidation.
Okay, so how can people access that matrix? Have you got that on the web somewhere, or?
I think the only place that is public right now is on my Twitter, which is at Matt Goldenberg. It's in my thread of threads. And this is, there's like a whole bunch more that I haven't added to this yet that is down in this, this one is not so pretty. But yeah, so that's like the general process I'm going through. So we were talking about the problem of like bringing stuff up, like noticing things, how to bring them up. I wonder how you guys think about that.
I do intuition first. So when my intuition is go for it, I go for it, and I'm trying to work with that even more, so that it is and accurate and and
I imagine as you do that over time, your intuition gets more and more honed. You were saying there's some times where you're overriding your intuition about confronting, but I imagine that as you try some things that are a little scary there, your intuition is like, oh, I should confront here now, because you see it work a lot of times.
I think of it as building self-trust with my intuition, that this before I know where it's going to go, therefore I can guide that way. And obviously that's one of those endless learning processes that it's like balancing on a knife edge. Don't be too overconfident or bullish, or else you'll scare the people, and some people need scaring and other people don't need scaring, and it's really a knife edge, but learning to be on that knife edge is the skill.
So it'd be interesting to see what comes up. I mean, there's possibly some loose ends there, or maybe some deeper things would resurface.
I'd be curious.
Maybe you could have warned him about that. Maybe some things will come up during the next weeks or whatever.
I'd be curious to know if it's fixed, or if some of it comes up, like maybe bits of it there, like the I'm lazy might return, but in a different shape.
I've got to follow up with him next week where we're going to go over what happened. So perhaps I'll include that in this episode so people can see what the sort of loose ends, what came up for, and what stuck, what didn't, if anything. I think that's a good point. I do go into that a little bit, both at the beginning and at the end, after we stopped here and before we started playing. I go into a little bit of some of that stuff. But I think that's a great point, that like you really want to. Stuff comes up when you do these big emotional shifts. Stuff can happen. You're a little bit more sensitive. Things, you might think everything is perfect, and then it turns out there's more resistance that you didn't run into during your integration. So
if this was a smaller problem, I'd be like, oh, you can knock that one out of the bag. You're arguing with your partner, you can knock that one out maybe. But a PhD is such a big life challenging thing that I don't know. Sometimes it wasn't like, I'm not sitting down to do the work. It was a whole grab bag of like, I haven't been productive over my life. I'm a lazy person. I'm like, because it was such a big thing, I don't know that you will have, and because a PhD is so big, we were saying earlier, it will challenge you. You are likely to find parts of you come up. There may be future challenges with the PhD. I mean, even he was like, I'm going to have a work-life balance problem if I like this too much. Like, maybe that one maybe that one won't even be bad. Maybe it will be terrible. Maybe he'll come back.
Presumably you gave him some instructions about, what to do in the next 2 weeks, in terms of, checking in, seeing how things are going. Very, very.
I noticed that when you said the thing about memory reconsolidation, your first sentence was, there's an idea from science. And then you went into, it's called memory reconsolidation. and you went into explaining it. Like you explained before you explained before you explained it. And I was like, that's something you might be able to cut short to like try this. It's called memory reconsolidation and go straight into the exercise.
I think he was trying to give it the authority. And you could have perhaps, if you wanted to even add to that, say like there's a book about it.
Yeah.
And I've tried it myself, whatever, to give it more.
Or I worked with someone else who had this problem.
I've had success with this process in the past, or testimonials kind of. But it seemed to convince him anyway. It seemed to be enough. So very interesting.
I don't know if it's just how the video ended up happening, like the Zoom screens, but it seemed like you did a bunch of the talking and he did a bunch of the, I guess, silent reflecting or thinking about, or I don't know. And now I'm curious, and I have to watch my sessions. How much do I talk? How much do they talk?
And I think presentation.
So part of go ahead.
Would be screen perhaps.
Oh yeah, if they were both
head screen, that would be better to view.
Yeah.
Because you can see.
So this particular session, I think he said at the end, I wanted to talk more. I felt bad about not talking as much, but at the beginning I say, because this is going to be shared, if there's anything you're not comfortable talking about, you don't have to talk about it. And we can work with it in a way where, where I don't necessarily know what the content is going on internally. And at the end, he said, ended up doing that a lot. And so part of that is just the constraints of knowing that the way this works is basically I went on my Twitter and I was like, hey, I'm doing these free sessions. I typically charge $600 for this. You can get it for free as long as you're comfortable with it being recorded. So these are people I've never worked with before, and I might not ever work with again. So the other constraint there is like, in some instances, there might have been I probably would have been at some point been like, okay, let's integrate what we've done now, and next session we'll go into a deeper thing, right? But because this is one session, I'm like, all right, I want to get as much of the integration, as much of the transformation as we can in this one session.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes a lot more sense.
All right, thank you guys so much for being willing to come on, being willing to spend quite a bit of time going through this. I know it's a very long process. I appreciate you both for participating. If anybody was interested in finding out about either of you and potentially working with you, where would they do that? Do you offer that? Or how could they contact you?
Yeah, so I have a website. My website is bearlamp.com.au, and
say it again.
A coaching page. Bearlamp.com.au. I'll send it to you so you can like.
Bearlamp.com.au. Got it.
And I work with people. I charge $150 an hour at the moment, but that may be going up as I fill up my schedule way too much and I need my own free time. But yeah, I work with states a lot. I work with qualities. Yeah, I have a lot of fun.
Yeah, look, if anyone did want to get in contact, they can get in contact through Eliot. I'm not doing this sort of thing mostly. I'm doing other things now, but it's just been just a very interesting session. So
yeah.
All right, I'm going to stop recording now. Thank you guys both so much.
Okay.